As is our custom, we introduce the players up here, and also in the audience, we have Julia Latter, our finance officer. We have Kelly Bigos, our recording secretary, Tom Wooden, our town manager, and select persons J.D. Warren, Russ Hoffman, Denise Griffin, Robert Spillane, and I'm Bill Hamblin. The first order of real business on our agenda is approval of the minutes of the August 12th, 2013 meeting. I would entertain a motion.
So moved?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Are there any comments? I had two minor corrections. One is on page 2, where we were talking about the West Harbor Pond spillway, and in the minutes it says stillway, so it should be S-P-I-L, not S-T-I-L. And on page 6, under public forum, it said that Robert Sample stated, and I don't think your first name is Robert, is it?
Speaking of me?
Yeah.
No, sir, by no means.
I think that should be Link Sample stated.
Actually, my name's Frank, but,
If we did that, then no one would know who was talking.
I really think my father's talking, man.
Yeah. So with those two small corrections, I move we make those two small corrections and then go ahead to approve.
So moved. I'll motion that we approve it.
All right. Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Next order of business is financial, and I'll turn the floor over to Julia.
On your revenue sheets, you have a total revenue of $383,505.12. That's about 2.8% compared to this time last year. And total expenses, $1,013,655.81. Does anyone have any questions on the revenue and expenses? We have collected roughly about $100,000 more in prepayments than we have compared to this time last year, and then the tax part of sales as well. That's why we're ahead.
So that's part of that $100,000.
And total accounts payable, $80,270.51, and the bank balance is $1,451,104.15.
Any questions for Julia? Comments?
One question, the tax bills have gone out, haven't they?
Yes, they have.
To everyone?
They have.
It doesn't leave what's the due date on them, Tom?
Well, it depends where they're going, I would assume, but I got mine on Saturday.
No.
September
Oh, when the
12th.
taxes are due.
September 12th.
Yeah, 12, sorry.
Interest
Yeah.
is on 13th.
The 12th?
Yes.
That doesn't give many days, does it?
It went out 2 days later this year than it did last year, so I've talked with Rob to see if we can move that up considerably next year. Give people more time.
So will you hold off penalty charges for a couple days or whatever?
For this year?
Yeah? No?
No?
That seems a little harsh.
Oh, we're not even required to send tax bills out, but, no, I mean, we did our best to get them out on, as the same time we did last year. We missed it by 2 days.
All right.
Any other questions, comments? Julia? Julia, thank you. That brings us to town manager announcements.
I
Tom,
only
you
have
have the floor.
I only have 2 this evening. Just a reminder that at the next meeting, which is September 9th, Robbie Ham and Scott Lash will be here as requested for their quarterly meeting to discuss their budget. And the only other thing that I have here is in your mailboxes, I think it was the end of last week, you all had an application for a permanent member for the Budget Committee from Margaret Spillane. And I would ask the board to appoint Margaret Spillane to the Budget Committee.
I would entertain a motion.
So moved?
And a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded to appoint Margaret Spillane to the Budget Committee. Any discussion on this topic? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed?
I'm not
Carries
opposed.
4 to
I've recused
1.
myself. It's my daughter-in-law.
Motion carries 4 votes yea, 1 abstention.
That's all I have this evening, Bill.
if the board might indulge me, now might be a good time to report, at the last meeting, we were asked on the levels about the West Harbor Pond. And I had a moderately lengthy conversation with Gary Arnold, who is a biologist and expert and very familiar with the pond and all of its workings. And he explained to me that he believes there is no unusual water loss at this point in time. He acknowledges that the evaporation rates have been very, very high the last 3 weeks because we've had no rain, fairly dry, lots of sun, and that the levels for mid-August are within the norms. He also had an explanation for why he felt there was more weeds and biomass in the shallows than in prior years. And that got fairly technical, but my simplistic takeaway was the level of the pond was fairly high in the spring. And so the seeds happened of these, of the water growths, happened concentrated in the shallows, not so much in the depths. So he thinks the total biomass of the weeds is about the same, but it seems like it's choking the shallows because these got seeded more heavily in the springtime. And for further explanation, I suggest you talk to him directly, and he will do a much better job of explaining it. But there's no indication from anyone I talked to that either the spillway or the dam is leaking in an unusual fashion. There are no public hearings tonight, so that moves us to the next order of business is the first public forum. And I will turn the floor open to the public. Anyone care to comment, talk, question?
I just have a question for the tax collector. Did you say you don't even have to send out bills?
We're not required to, no, we certainly do though.
No, I understand. How are the taxpayers supposed to find out how much it is if you don't send them out?
Well, technically, it's their responsibility to
Oh,
come and
come?
find out, yeah,
No, it's just,
yeah,
never heard of that before.
yeah. I was surprised with that too.
Well, I was surprised when I got the bill Saturday, and I eeny, meeny, miny on my fingers and figured out there's 12 business days that you give the people. And I think some people deserve a little bit more latitude than.
I do too, yeah, that's why we're gonna try to move it up, yeah.
Dorothy, you got your hand up?
Thank you.
I just
Thank you.
wondered if we were gonna hear a report, was there any final decisions or considerations on how the public would participate in the meetings?
That's our next order of business once we conclude this section of the meeting.
Okay, I'm interested in hearing that. Thank you.
Jim?
The getting away together group, do you want that in the public session or we later? I haven't seen the agenda, I'm sorry.
If you want to speak, now would be the time.
Okay. Well then, we can speak now if that's okay with you.
Is that okay with the board? Jim is not a
Sure.
resident of Boothbay Harbor, but
Yep.
be our guest.
I'm just gonna step out so that,
Let me make sure I understand. You're going to speak to the
getting away together.
TV show.
Yes, the TV show.
Actually, I think it might be best to do that when we discuss that.
Okay.
Would that be
Yeah,
okay with the
that's-
board?
Sure,
Yes.
that's under
Yeah.
the agenda.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, it's on the
It's on
agenda.
there.
Yeah, they're on the back.
I'm
page,
sorry.
Jim.
I didn't mean to get you up and down. Anyone else? Going once, going twice? First public forum is closed. That brings us to unfinished business, and the first item under unfinished business is public participation. We talked about this at our last two meetings, and since that time, at the last meeting, we talked about what some of the other towns do to handle this by way of having the public participate in each agenda item as it comes up. And I, for one, think this is a good way to handle it. I distributed to the selectmen a summary of that, which you've all seen, and I would appreciate your comments and thoughts and motions if appropriate.
I'll go. I liked what you sent. I would suggest, I'd like to see an addition of a review of the entire agenda at the beginning of the meeting. In other words, I guess I'm suggesting that we keep 2 public forums, but the first one be dedicated to finding out what should be on the agenda if it's not already. So we review the agenda and we ask for any items that should be perhaps added. And that way we might manage the time of the meeting a little better.
Would it be your intent that agenda items would be added at that time?
If possible.
Yeah, I would personally not be in favor of that.
Yeah,
because
I got that from
You
what
don't
was
have
here
time
as
to do
well.
your research
And we may not,
Yeah.
or it might be a question that could be
Yeah.
addressed. The thought.
Well, my thinking is that, I think similar to what Link Sample suggested at the last meeting, is that, to my, best of my recollection, the way we ran things under Mr. Splain's chairmanship and Mr. Engert's chairmanship was that we had one public forum, but as each issue came up, if the audience wanted to speak, we let them speak and offer a comment. But the point of the point of the audience speaking at that point in time is to make a comment, not to have an extremely long debate going on. It's to comment. So
On that
on that particular item.
agenda item.
And people are welcome to call the town office or to call any one of us to get an item on the agenda for the next meeting, should there be something that's going to take a considerable length of time and require
Yep.
discussion, research, and debate. But the debate is to happen here, the debate's not to happen this way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my personal opinion, and I don't think we need anything in writing. I think we just need an understanding of how we want to operate. And like I said, I thought that in previous years that worked very well, and there was ample opportunity for the public to comment.
I tend to agree with Denise. I think it should, people should comment on the issue. I think that's important. After all, we want to hear from the taxpayers and all that, and if it's but we need to have a time frame. I don't think we should get out of control with it. We should keep it in control. That's my big thing, keeping it in control and make sure that everybody has a chance to speak on a particular issue that evening. That's how I feel about it.
I think two things. I think that you should probably read your own brief on the subject.
Be happy to.
And the second thing is that I agree with Denise. I think that that items that are on the agenda are the items that we want to discuss. And I think that it is always appropriate, once a motion has been made, to ask the public for comment. The gavel is useful then because it can shut off unwarranted comment, or it can put some time limit if it's repetitive. But I believe that there's often a reason that there are new items that come up from time to time, and they should definitely be received by the board, passed to the town manager, and asked to be put on the next agenda. After all, this is a body that is supposed to deliberate on issues before it, and I think snap judgments are generally wrong, and I think you need that time in the 2 weeks that ensue after a meeting to discover what's right or what's wrong. So I'm in a full agreement with what Denise says.
I will read what I circulated to the board, which is really an abstraction of what was done in other towns. I will also preface this by saying, when I think I distributed it to you folks, I had it as proposed rules, and after discussion with several of the selectmen, that's too strong a word. It's really guidelines or policy.
Right.
It's not a set of ironclad
Right.
things. It's an intent. So I will read it as suggested. As each item on the agenda is brought to the floor for discussion, either the sponsor, board member, or town manager as appropriate shall first present initial comments for consideration by the public and the board. Following this introduction of the issue, there will be time devoted to any questions which any board member may have, which would help clarify the agenda item. The chairman shall allow only questions during this time, and no debate or discussion of collateral issues shall be permitted. Once the agenda item has been explained and clarified as provided above, there will be time for any resident, taxpayer, or authorized representative to address the board regarding this particular agenda item. Any comment by the public shall be limited to the expression of opinions or concerns regarding the agenda item only. No public comment shall be allowed which has the effect of embarrassing or attacking any individual or board member. After input from the public, the chair will close the public comment on the issue and then provide for debate and vote of the issue by the board. That's addressing each agenda item. And then there's a second paragraph that addresses how the agenda items get there. Regular agenda items will be set by the board during the week prior to their meeting. Requests for agenda items from the public may be submitted to the town manager in writing by noon on the Wednesday prior to the regularly scheduled selectmen's meeting, along with any and all necessary supporting material and information. The chairman, in consultation with the board, will determine the final agenda. Alternatively, the public may suggest an agenda item during a selectmen's meeting. However, any such suggestions will not be discussed at that meeting, but will be addressed at the next regularly scheduled selectmen's meeting. This does not preclude the board from considering any agenda item at any time following a majority vote of the board. So if something is time critical, the board can obviously proceed with it. And those are the two paragraph guidelines that I was suggesting might be put forth as how we operate in the future.
Well,
Is the board in agreement with that? If so, I would entertain a motion.
So I move that we adopt as guidelines the two paragraphs that you just read to us. Yeah, as guidelines is what I said, so.
Yeah. It's been moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
So if I was to read back what I think I heard in terms of an agenda, then that would look something like we would operate essentially the same until we got to first public forum, where we would probably insert agenda item by agenda item, unfinished business and new business, and discuss amongst ourselves and invite public participation
Yes.
as we go down
Yes.
the items.
Yes. Yeah, but there still would be an agenda item that said public forum, at which time people can say, I think you guys ought to put this on your agenda. And then we would either do that or not, depending upon how the board feels.
Okay.
so in order to clarify that, you're talking about one formal public forum.
I'm talking about one agenda item for the public to
Right.
suggest agenda items or ask questions.
Sure.
Yeah. And it could be early, it could be late, probably early is better, but,
Yeah, I guess I would suggest early.
yeah. Any other questions or comments? You ready for the question?
I can go along with that, with the one public forum, and pretty much as you described the process as guidelines. So I would move that, well, I think it's already been moved and
Yeah.
We're
seconded.
discussing.
Any further discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous, it passes. I heard from the audience, when does it take effect? I would presume it takes effect at our next meeting, but I will do whatever the board wishes.
Warm up the gavel.
We can do it now, I don't care.
Road test.
It's fine with me. Fine with me to do it
All right,
now.
we'll do it now. That concludes public participation.
Right.
The next item under unfinished business is bicycle ordinance. This is an issue that has been hanging around our agenda for some weeks now. and I think it's on the agenda so that we either take action or get it off our agenda.
I brought it up. I probably should,
I would turn
I
this
would like
over
to
to-
have the floor just to
Yes,
discuss
please.
it. The reason I brought it up in the first place was that during the summer months in particular, there are a lot of people that use the footbridge. And I was particularly concerned with the footbridge until I started to talk to people who were complaining to me, several people, not many, 4 or 5 people, that they had been struck by bicycles on the sidewalk, bumped, I guess, or get out of the way kind of thing, going the wrong way or even riding on the sidewalks. There is apparently no public ordinance that would allow the police chief or someone to take action on if there was a serious problem. Chester Fawcett called me, who keeps his eye on the footbridge, and he said, well, whatever happened at the board meetings when you talked about bicycle ordinances, certainly seems to have got a lot more people pushing their bicycles. I walk across the footbridge at various times between 5:30 and probably 7:30 in the mornings, along with various people. And the number of bicycles that ride on the bridge before 6 o'clock, there are guys that go to work, and I've tried the old off and walk, and some do, and as soon as they pass you, they jump on the bike and ride like hell. So, the thing is that it certainly is better than it was. I complained bitterly to the town manager about someone putting 2 rather large signs up on the footbridge, screwing them into the utility poles above the rather official but unbacked signs. And they were removed by Public Works, and I have no idea where they came from, but they were very beautiful, which tacitly gave permission for people to ride on the footbridge. I think that I don't really want to say no bicycles on the footbridge at any time of the year, because I think in the winter it's about the only people you're going to run over are seagulls, and even they don't like to be around in our winters. But I think public awareness of the fact that people who walk with canes, people who just walk, people who ride in wheelchairs, disabled people use the footbridge, and they use it extensively. And I think that to allow people who are in a hurry to ride a bicycle across there is dangerous, and it is bound ultimately to lead to someone getting hurt. So I strongly urge that perhaps a public notice in the newspaper about caution riding bicycles once a year at this time of the year might be a good, not at this time, but at the beginning of the season might be a good thing. I don't think it's necessary to have an ordinance, but I think public awareness is important, and I think we've achieved that.
Under our new rules, we're in the clarification stage of this agenda item. So any other questions or comments from the board? Questions, no comments.
When we talked about this last time, I thought we left an action item to put some signs up.
We have put some signs up.
We have.
There were some there before, we've made them even larger, but someone
Okay.
else took it on their own to put.
Right,
others.
I know
Yeah.
about that, so, okay.
Yeah.
So we have
We have
put
that.
the signs up that we talked about, right?
The signs are quite clear. I think they could be clearer. I think the international sign might be helpful.
Yeah.
You know, one of these circles with a cross and a bicycle on it might be useful. And I would, Tom, perhaps you might talk to Jody about that as a sign, because I think perhaps part of the problem is an international language problem.
So, not to put words in your mouth, Bob, but my takeaway is that you are not suggesting an ordinance change at this point in time,
No.
but you are suggesting increased awareness, and I heartily endorse that.
And I think that once a year, we could probably put an ad in the papers
Okay.
to say, be careful, everybody be aware that there's a lot of people that use the bridge.
Sounds good.
I have noticed, though, I was down in Haverside eating recently, and I saw people coming, and they are walking their bikes.
Yeah.
So it is working.
It's working.
So, you know.
At this point in time, let me open up the floor for the public for comments or questions on this agenda item only, the issue of bicycle ordinances. Frank?
Frank Bassett, Boothbay Harbor. Mr. Wooden, what do the new bigger signs say?
We put them up quite a while ago, so I don't remember the exact wording, but what I asked Jody to put up was something like you recommended that didn't start off with a negative. It started off, please walk bicycles on
Okay,
footpaths.
so it doesn't say no bicycles.
Right.
So
No.
the international sign would be,
Yeah, I don't know how that international sign
You'd
would
have to-
work, because that would mean you can't even walk them across.
Right.
So,
It's
that's,
plain old unfortunate.
yeah. Yeah, so that's why in an effort to do it quickly, we
Yeah.
put the written words up rather than the international
Yeah.
sign.
The one that's there now says no bicycle riding, no rollerblading, no
Right.
roller skates or something.
I think that's one of the original ones.
Kathy?
I know that the Boothbay Rotary does a lot with the bicycles. It might be worth talking to Doug or those all and let them.
Yeah, we discussed that at our
talk to the
prior
children about
meetings.
the International and riding bicycles and just giving them a heads up.
Yeah. Palmer?
There's another problem on Commercial Street. It's one way. Bicycles are supposed to observe that as well as cars. Bicycle traffic on Commercial Street is,
I'm going to ask that, to deflect you a minute by saying that we talked with the police chief about that, and there exists ordinance on our books and in state law that allows enforcement of bicycles going the wrong way on a one-way street.
I know, allowing enforcement, I understand that, but it isn't enforced. Sit on my front porch someday and watch them. They go by, because you've got a barracks around the corner from one of the restaurants, and the restaurant crews go both ways.
Yeah.
When you get to that 250-degree turn, if you're in a car coming from the tugboat, and somebody on a bicycle comes whizzing around, and they go on both sides. It's treacherous enough at that turn with nobody on a bicycle, let alone.
Okay. Jim?
My name is Jim Stormont, and I happen to be one of the parking enforcement people. The chief has told us to tell anybody we see on the footbridge riding that they need to walk it, anybody riding on the sidewalk that they can't ride on the sidewalk, and on the one-way streets that they're supposed to be going the direction of the traffic. Now, on any given day, there's only one of us walking around and then two guys in the parking lot. So there's still a lot of things going on, but the chief has made it clear to us to keep an eye out and enforce the bicycle rules, both footbridge, sidewalks, and one-way streets.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to ask, since there's no rule on the books that prevents people from riding on the sidewalks, how can we enforce
No,
that?
there is a rule on the books for riding on sidewalks.
May I ask where it is?
State law. State law requires that bicycles be treated as vehicles and that they not ride on byways, footpaths, sidewalks, et cetera.
When I read the main rules, it specifically said that it was up to towns to determine those
No,
rules.
there's a specific, I didn't bring it with me tonight, but I can show it to you later.
I would appreciate that.
Okay. Anyone else? I'm going to close the public discussion on this section. So, our action is in fact no action. Is that
Right.
not correct?
That's right.
Awareness.
Awareness. Now on to new business. The first item under new business is firework display notification. And this issue came up as a result of the recent fairly significant fireworks display in the harbor that caught many people unawares. And I guess what was suggested by citizens to you, Tom, is that there be a notification part of our ordinance.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, everyone likes fireworks, but they like to know they're coming.
Yeah.
And I mean, most people enjoyed the show, but there were a few people with pets and small children that didn't enjoy it as much. At the moment, our ordinance doesn't require notification. I think we
Right.
should add that to it at the next town meeting. At the moment, whoever's putting on the professional fireworks shows, and this one was done by Central Pyrotechnics, just like the ones that we have done for Windjammer Days and the 4th. At the moment, they're only required to get the state fire marshal's approval, and that permit goes back to whoever applied for it. So nothing came to here. So we knew about it a couple of days in advance, but it was a little late to notify the world at that point that that was gonna happen.
So would a sentence in the ordinance that says that the person, business, or other entity issued a fireworks display permit would be required to notify the town manager X business days ahead?
You might even make it, it would be required to place a public notice in the paper at their expense,
Mhm,
you know, rather than us have to advertise someone
That's a
else's
good
show.
point, yeah.
Good point, yeah.
But I mean, I can draw something up, so maybe at the next town meeting, we have that as an ordinance revision.
Yeah.
I think it was a wonderful fireworks display, no question about it. But I think, as you say, that we have animals and small children, and there were a number of animals that didn't return home for a couple of days. It was a show that was very close to land in some places, and the reverberation was pretty horrendous, but it was a great display. So I think I was surprised it was that close to the hospital, and I just wondered how the people in the hospital were even taking it, because it was pretty hard going there for a while.
So if we're all clear on it, I will open the floor up for public discussion on this agenda item. Joyce?
Yeah, it was awful. I thought the fireworks were at 11 West Street. They were so loud, and I had no clue what was going on and who was doing it. I knew we had an ordinance, no fireworks, so I called 911, and they said, well, the state gave them permission. And I go, well, wait a minute, they're not legal in Boothbay Harbor, what's going on? She said, oh, it's just for 20 minutes. So I said, okay. So after 20 minutes passed, I called again. It's been 25 minutes. What can we do to stop them? I was really upset. My animals were upset. I was upset. Couldn't hear anything. And they were the loudest and fireworks I've ever heard. And by the way, who put those fireworks out? Who paid for the fireworks company to do that?
The yacht club is who took the permit out.
The
with
yacht
state-
club?
With the state
All
fire
right,
marshal.
thank
Yeah.
you.
I'm not sure that's who financed it, but that's who put the show on.
It effectively halted the Marvin Parrott, excuse me, it effectively halted the show at the Opera House. Livingston Taylor said, we're gonna have an intermission now, and it will last as long as the fireworks last. So he was, you know, amusing about it, but it really, it was that loud at the Opera House that it completely disrupted everything.
I was 850 feet away from them, and they were loud, but very enjoyable from where I sat.
But that would be, if we had a permit process that was a couple of weeks in advance, then, and we
Yeah.
notified, or everybody was notified via the paper or some way, then at least I think organizations like the Opera House could plan around that, or maybe a little bit better.
Exactly.
We would have been happy to keep our animals in, and so on and so forth. It was,
Honor.
that
It
was the
didn't
big
bother
thing.
me, but, well, a neighbor of yours was getting some fallout from this stuff in their front yard on McCown Point Road.
Yeah, I thought that it was a little close. I mean, when we put on the town shows, we have a lot bigger security barrier around
Well,
it,
it's
but
also more into the harbor, it falls into the harbor, but there were actually burned out pieces of whatever left over from fireworks when they exploded was falling in the road.
Can't we do something about that, Tom, for the future? Can't we,
what would you like to do?
well, I mean, can't,
Ask the
if,
state fire marshal to
I mean, they-
check when he gives a permit, if he really knows.
They came down and actually secured the perimeter and said, this is how far everything has to be around. And
Yeah, okay.
at the moment, that's how it goes. I mean, if you wanted to introduce something more, I suppose you could probably do that. But,
Let's start, I'm inclined to start with a notification, and I can't imagine this is going to be a terribly common event.
yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen that often, and maybe what you do is you have a caveat in there that, you know, for this type of event in the harbor, they use the town mooring,
Yeah.
rather than the Coast Guard mooring over by the yacht club.
well, because we know the town mooring works.
Right, that's what it's there for.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else from the public? Let me close the discussion of this agenda item. I think I heard a sentiment from the selectmen that, Tom, you draft a modification to this section for our next town warrant and town meeting. Would someone care to move that?
I would.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? you are so tasked. The next item is support for the PBS TV series. Now,
I apologize, I didn't look at your agenda in advance. And if nobody minds, I'm gonna cover indoors. So I'm Jim Chaosis, I'm the Boothbay Town Manager, obviously wearing a slightly different cap tonight. I wanted to introduce, because the way we got involved with the Getting Together project was at the grassroots level. How do we put together a project, and the town of Boothbay offered, if we supply some funding, I'll also show up and try to help get Boothbay Harbor's government involved. But essentially, the way we've looked at this project, which I'll have Audrey explain, it's a grassroots economic development project in which we could bring a PBS a TV station here to do a special piece on the Boothbay region. The town of Boothbay sees a lot of benefits to this. The problem will be trying to solicit funding, even though the price of this is relatively inexpensive once we put together all of the skills and assets that the Boothbay region has collectively. Audrey Miller has been I'm not sure if she's actually taken the role as the leader, but she's been the leader. We've appointed her as the leader of this route, so she's going to explain the project to you, but I'm here to explain what Boothbay has done in regards, if that helps you in any interest that you might have.
Thank you. I don't know if you know about this project or what you've heard about it, but basically, our company is celebrating its 20th year in business here in the Boothbay region as Cottage Connection. And for the past 17 years, we've been part of a national and now international organization called the Vacation Rental Managers Association. It's a professional organization of professional vacation rental managers. They are one of the underwriters of this PBS show because they were one of the people that created the show, and they found a 7-time Emmy Award-winning producer to make the shows. They had their first season last year. They made 10 shows, and they've done them all over the country: Oregon, Utah, North Carolina, Florida. They're on to their second season now, and they have all of the shows that they really need for their second season. But Melba and I were in Phoenix at an annual conference, and we spoke with Jerry Smith, who's the producer of this show, and we told him that, do you ever come to New England? And over these last 20 years, we're a very small community compared to the year-round vacation rental places like the coast of Hatteras, North Carolina. So we never get to get into the big leagues with these places that have a lot of resources and year-round tourism. So in talking with him, I tried to interest him in coming to Maine. And he is, over the last 4 or 5 months, I've been keeping him apprised of what's been going on here in this area. And people are coming together to support the idea that this would be a wonderful opportunity for Boothbay and the region to market itself and get top of mind all around the world, because the show has a shelf life, particularly a good one, of 5 to 7 years. And because FlipKey and TripAdvisor and the VRMA are underwriting a major portion of the cost, some of the larger towns around the country have had to come up with $65,000, but they said if we could come up with $55,000, they would be here. $12,500 is for pre-production, and then $25,000 is to produce the show, and then the $12,500 is for the post-production. And the unique thing about this show is because Verma is part of one of the underwriters of it, they own the rights to it, unlike other television stations. So we have the unique benefit of being able to take this professionally done footage and mix it and reuse it any way we want to benefit the area and the area businesses. I started fundraising a little late for trying to get them here, and we kept trying to decide, well, when would be the best time for them to come? And first we wanted to do it during Windjammers, and then they said, no, we don't want to be there during a major event. We wanted, everybody says we want to find a way to expand the season. And our season is so short here. And I thought, well, gee, this is a really great way to do that, because people that are going to see this show are going to be in China and Japan and Europe and all across the country for any of the states and the PBS stations that buy this show. Maine may never see it on PBS, but that's okay, because we're here. We want people around the world to see it, and it is a way to extend the season. And when I tell people about it, they got pretty excited about it. And so far, we've had commitments from the town of Boothbay, the Boothbay Region Chamber of Commerce in Boothbay Harbor has pledged $1,000 to match member donations. The Boothbay Region Information Center has given us a pledge of $2,000 to match donations from area businesses. A lot of businesses have been giving us $500, $100. We've had individuals giving us money. We've raised about $15,000 right now, and we need to raise another $40,000 in order to. They said if we raised 25, they would come here, but I'm not a gambler, and I want it all up front before I commit to anything for us to do this. What we will do is we will provide a place for it's vacationers, it's people that have never been here before, and they will come and they'll stay in a home, and then everything is paid for by the TV show. All these people have to do is get here. So we've been talking about what is the type of desirable tourist that we want to attract here. And PBS definitely has the market that we're looking for, the well-educated and the family-oriented people. And so we think it's just a no-brainer to do this. And I don't know, I guess you could ask questions and I'd be happy to answer them, but I'm selling hats. I formed a team of people that all got together and said, okay, how can we make this happen? And Doug Gimbel and Ryan Layton have put together a video. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to watch it. It's pretty incredible that they feel the value of this show is so great that they were willing to make the effort to put this together at their own expense and with their own time. This is a hat that's blue color, and it's actually called Boothbay Blue. And it was donated by another one of our team members, and the Harbor Embroidery is embroidering them for us, and it says getting away together with the show's logo starring the Boothbay region, and they're selling like hotcakes for $25 a piece. We have these cans all over town that were also donated and for people to put money in, and we have about 70 of them all around the area at the moment. It's been very gratifying, but we still have quite a ways to go and we don't have much time to do it, so I'm here to ask you to help.
Thank you. I would entertain questions from the board at this point.
I have some questions. Can you be more specific about the time frame? What's the drop dead date?
Well, it's very interesting because Jerry Smith, who is more than willing to talk to anybody who wants to call him, he's been watching what we've been doing, and typically he wants 6 weeks notice so that he can start planning to come to a destination. And if we want him to come here by the end of September to film in the last week of September or the 1st in October, which is the very, very last minute, he knows the status of our donations, and he's quite amazed at the community support that we have, and he's convinced that we're going to raise the money. So he's inked us in, even though we've signed no contract with them. And they're preparing to come here right now with the belief that we will raise this money. If we don't raise this money, then we will move it back to next spring, but I am going to get them here because I think it would be the best thing that ever happened to us. They're very, very good people and they make a first-class production.
So 2 other questions. What percentages of the businesses in town have already donated?
I don't have that statistic for you, but it's partially our fault because we haven't gotten around to everybody.
Okay, and I've never seen the show on PBS. Are last year's season's 10 shows available?
Yes, and you can go to gettingawaytogether.com and you can watch the shows on the computer.
Okay.
Each television station, there are like 495 PBS stations across the country. When they're choosing their programming, they choose to buy the show. I have letters of recommendation from the places and a list of the stations that have bought the show, and I have letters from 8 of the places where the show has been shown, and they've all seen an increase in business, and they also have seen something growing out of it that has to do with pride, personal pride. Utah is doing a 2nd season show and Oregon is doing a 2nd season show. They found that the people in the community that helped and saw their town being talked about in this way took such pride in it, and that the people that would come and visit those areas like Park City, Utah, would say, if you want to see where I went on vacation, go look at this show. And they send them to this website, even if they don't have it on their TV. And it's been a real boost to them, so much so that they're doing a 2nd season.
I have a question. Have you ever done it in Maine, in any other town?
No, as a matter of fact,
This is first.
we would be the first in New England. And what happened?
First in New England?
The first in New England to have a show, one of the episodes here in New England. And when I first started talking about this in May, Lisa Christoph at the Register wrote a wonderful article about it and talked to Jerry Smith to get all of her facts straight. And the person that I was talking to at the Vacation Rental Managers Association passed the article on to one of my counterparts in Gloucester, Massachusetts, Carol Sharoff of Atlantic Vacation Rentals. And she went to the mayor of Gloucester, Massachusetts and showed him this article, and he immediately gave her $5,000 toward bringing the TV show to Gloucester first, and because they want to be first. And I don't really care if we're first or not, but I think it's really important that we do it. And I think it would be nice if we were first and if we could beat her, but be that as it may, we would be the only ones. I've approached the state of Maine. I've talked to people in the Maine Office of Tourism. We had a conversation with, what's his name? Just on
Phil Savion?
No, on the phone the other day. I'm drawing a blank. Well, anyway.
Vaughn Stinson.
Vaughn Stinson. And, they're all trying to fundraise. And Boothbay Harbor and the Boothbay region, we have a lot of wonderful nonprofits that depend on donations from people. And so when this TV show comes here, one of the things that they're going to do is they're going to go around and they're going to show all the wonderful places that we have, a lot of which are funded by donations and nonprofits. So I was asking these other towns that have already made these shows, how did you raise the money? And they would go to the town and they would go to the CVBs, they call them, Convention Visitors Bureaus, and they would ask them for the money. And Tristan Webb out in Salt Lake City, Utah, raised $65,000 in one day, just going around town and face-to-face visiting with the businesses and the CVB. And I have not been that successful here in Boothbay.
Well, but that was Salt Lake city.
Different scale.
And this, you see,
A little
this is-
bigger than us.
A little bit.
So, but I still think that it's, we can do this, and I'm determined that we do this, so we are gonna do this.
Any other questions from the selectmen?
Yeah. Ms. Miller?
Yes, sir.
We've just issued our tax bills that raise the taxes on our citizens by 4.5%. 2 weeks ago, at 6 o'clock, we had a rather impassioned meeting with Catherine Wigand, who is sat right in the audience. And she was asking how this board might, from its citizens, raise funds to support Windjammer Days, because the business people aren't supporting Windjammer Days. So we're asking the people who rely, as you say, on public donations for the food pantry and so on, and who, by the way, also in their tax bills pay for PBS. We are all taxed for PBS. But now you're asking us to raise some money. For what? Exactly, I don't mean, I understand this, but I'll be asked, as I'm sure you are asked, so you already have this answer. What will it do for the average taxpayer in Boothbay Harbor? What will they do if we spend $2,000 more of their money?
Well, the way I view it is all ships rise with the tide. And as I have been able to go around and talk with many of the businesses here, I can tell you that business is not what they would like it to be, and times are tough everywhere.
Never is.
And I can, see that in our own business. And I would like to do something to give back to this community. And I think this is one way to do it, because if you bring people into town, especially in the off-season, it's going to increase the revenue for everybody. And it's going to help everybody, because everybody in this town, in one way or another, is dependent on tourism. It's our major industry here. And I know that some people don't want to see any more people come to town, but until we have some other source of income, I think it's really important that we do as much as we can to get them here, and not all at once. I don't want everybody to come in July and August like they do. I'd like to see them come in May and June, and some in September and October. And I think this would be a way to do it, and it will bring more revenue to the area.
Thank you very much. My only comment is that you were unable to provide a statistic as to how many businesses have contributed or were willing to.
I can do that.
But for the amount of money that you're asking this municipal body to assess our residents, they all will pay if we pass it. So I want you to be well aware of that.
Let's keep board questions, and then we'll come back to the audience. I think. Any other questions from any of the selectmen? I have some. Do you know what was the penetration of the first season of, first of all, it's a wonderful idea. I saw your website. You've done a terrific job on that. The video was amazing, as you say, and very inventive and very good. Do you have the penetration of the first season of the show into the 495 PBS stations? How many of those stations picked up the show and paid for it and aired it?
There's quite a list.
I'm just looking for a single number, roughly.
I have a list of 69 stations here that they provided me with when I first
Okay.
started this in May.
So 70 stations picked it up and paid for it, roughly. You mentioned that we would own the footage and could decide remix, and who's the we in that case?
It's the committee or the team of people that we put together to work with the show.
Okay, so you're going to form an actual official committee.
We have an official committee.
Okay.
And we are all just donating our time to make this
I
happen.
appreciate that. I'm just wondering in the case of downstream, you know, somebody wants to remix the footage and show something, and one of the businesses in town says, no, I don't want that, I want something else. I'm trying to figure out who decides as you go forward.
I think that it comes down to contributions, and, you know, I don't have a
Yeah.
system for that, but I think that the committee would definitely help decide. Jim and Catherine are both on it.
I have a question for Catherine, actually.
Yes.
Suppose all we could come up with is $2,000 for the business community next year. Would you rather see it go to Windjammers or to this?
Or Christmas lights,
Or Christmas lights? Or
harbor lights.
I don't think that's a fair question to ask me at this stage.
I think we have limited resources and we're in an allocation mode, so I think it is a fair question. Is this your top priority for funding?
What are you planning to do with Windjammer? That's just one event. What are you planning to do with the $2,000?
I'm not saying there is 2,000. As Spillane mentioned at our quarterly meeting with the chamber a few weeks ago, Catherine made a coherent and passionate plea that Windjammer needed some funding in order to remain healthy and viable. And, you know, it's on our radar scope. And I'm just saying there are going to be a lot of things on our radar scope, and I'm pretty sure we will not be able to fund all of them. So the question is, what are the top priorities? And she's in a unique position to establish the priorities for the business community and the economic development of the region.
Windjammer would be featured in the movie, so it would be promotional there. That would be.
Well, you're making an argument that
We don't know.
this is higher, but
Oh, Mike. Feature.
Yeah.
And I would
Most
like
likely.
to, as I discussed with you, I am Catherine Wygant Fawcett, the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce. And I have a task force and people are looking at all of those options.
Yeah.
So I need to do my research
Fair enough.
to the members to find out what my members feel
Right.
is more important.
fair answer.
So I can't personally make that decision. I need to go to my members and find out.
Okay. Has there been any data, you mentioned anecdotal data about the business improving in the towns for which this is done. Is there any hard data on that? And by the way, I'm delighted that you mentioned the shoulder seasons, because I agree with your analysis. Bringing more people here in August and July when all the hotels are booked and everything is filled up, you know, the hotels are not in a position to add 20 rooms because they're busy. We're built out. So the only way to bring economic value to the region that I see is by adding to the shoulder seasons. So I appreciate that.
Thank you for that, and I just want to say one other thing, and then I'd like to have Melba Gunnison speak to your question. When I've been going around talking to the different hotels and businesses in the area, they're not full in July and August this year.
Okay.
Hi, Melba Gunnison, Boothbay Harbor, and a member of the Getting Away Together Committee. This is a marketing opportunity. We have to look at it that way. I've talked to the people, the directors in Park City, in Oregon, and in Colorado that have this, and Park City saw a 10% increase in visitation and interest in visitation right after airing the show. That's been sustained, and sustained enough that they're doing a second season show because it was such an amazing event for them. And we have to look at it outside of fundraising. It's really marketing. It's getting this community in our area back on the map as the place to go if you're coming to Maine. We have one of the most beautiful areas and one of the most diverse areas for doing things. PBS reaches the people that we want, the families, the young adults that are interested in boating and kayaking, and we've seen a huge increase over the last few years in the people that are coming, that are bringing their kayaks, and they're bringing their family or generations of families, or now the baby boomers, couples traveling together that are coming. They want to go hiking, they want to see the botanical gardens. But if you aren't in the know and you're in other parts of the country, you have no idea about what's here. Bar Harbor is everywhere. You ask somebody from California, about Bar Harbor, or they know about Maine, they know about Bar Harbor, or they know about York Beach, but they don't remember Boothbay Harbor, and that's not how it used to be. I'd like to get us back there, and this is a huge marketing opportunity. It actually, I was just looking at material we have, it reaches 349 stations throughout the United States. And which is about 70% of the PBS audience.
All right, thank you.
I was impressed with the bump up that
Thank you.
people
Can I
are
ask a
seeing.
question? Absolutely. I'd also like to say thank you for bringing this opportunity. Economic development was, I think, a common priority of us up here at the beginning of our year. And I thought I understood this, but now I'm a little confused. So Boothbay, the Boothbay region would be one segment of the
Yes.
10, is that right?
Yes.
So the rest would be New England?
No.
Is that, no, not necessarily. Okay.
No, what has happened is, I have a list of the different towns that are signing up, and they've already got, I think, 8 of the ones, and they said they don't really need to do another show. They've got enough for season 2 right now, but if we can come up with the money, they will still come here and put us in season 2, and the reason that we want to do that is so that we can get into the broadcasting, so that we can start building business for next year. And, did I answer your question?
Mm-hmm, yep.
Any other
Yep.
questions from
Thank you.
select persons?
See, in June, they go to the Cannes Film Festival, or the Cannes Film Festival, and there's an organization called Cannes Media, and they sell the shows to China and Europe and Japan, and as soon as we get the show made, Cannes Media will start selling it, like they're selling all the others. The episodes, I know that, North Carolina, Utah, Oregon, I have a list. President Obama has hired Todd Davidson in Oregon of their tourism bureau to head up an organization. Can't remember the name of it, but their mission is to make it easier for people to come to the United States from other countries. Apparently, and I didn't know this, if you want to come to the United States from China, it can take up to a year to get a visa to come here. So one of the things that Obama has asked this group to do is to find ways to set up more offices in China so that more people can get to the United States quicker. And so he's very up on and has the president's ear, and he is one of the biggest supporters of this show. The thing that's unique about this show is that it's real people, and it's not a reporter like, what was her name, Samantha Brown, who travels around the world and you see a destination through her eyes. This is real people experiencing an area for the first time, doing things together as a family or as a group. And it's very powerful when you have real people experiencing something like that.
Thanks, Audrey. I think we're kind of clear on the question. I would like to hear from the audience, any audience members who are not part of Getting Away Together, about how they feel about this. Palmer?
Yep. I've had a little experience in broadcasting, and what you're talking about is advertising. You're in 69 markets, and the 2 numbers that you need in advertising, whether it's in newspapers or magazines or television or whatever, is what is your rating and what is your share in each market. In other words, you can put television shows on ad infinitum, and nobody's watching them. So what has been their experience in the markets that they're in?
I don't have that for you, but I will get it.
That's where it's valuable to use the
Let's
ability to.
let's have one at a time. Frank?
Yeah, Frank Vasquez, Boothbay Harbor. One question for Ms. Miller. When you say that we will own this piece, this chip, this card, will your organization then make it available to the town or the Chamber of Commerce to link up to YouTube or to use as promotional as a video on the website, on our websites?
As far as I know, that's absolutely possible.
Okay.
And for just the cost of the editing, say Watershed Tavern wants to make a video to put on YouTube and they want to talk about this area, they can use this professionally
Okay.
made video
Okay.
to do that.
Great, and then also to address the question of what does the average citizen of the region get out of this if we spend the money? And as a somewhat experienced business person, it is exactly marketing, that's exactly what it is. And the busier that we are here, and we've all talked about having to reach out and having to get back on the map, and this is a great way to do it. The more we're on the map, the busier we get in the shoulder seasons, the more people can stay on and work later into the season. It gives people an opportunity, if the businesses in town need to keep people employed into the shoulder seasons, it might mean that mom or dad don't have to travel outside of town to make a living and live here, which is family friendly, which is good for the whole community. It also means things like my children perhaps would have something to do in this region, something more to add instead of having to move away to work, which is family friendly, which is community friendly. If you don't think that it makes a difference, talk to the Gagnons at Red's Eats and talk about what happened after they got on the map, written up in a couple magazines. I mean, we all know about the incredible traffic and that they received there. So the average citizen, I think, in town would enjoy, with a stronger business community, people could stay closer to home and work longer into the season, and perhaps not draw unemployment as much as they maybe have to now to make ends meet. So good for business, in my eyes, is good for family.
Thanks, Frank.
Which is good for the town.
Anyone else?
Margaret Parrott, I have a rental cottage in Boothbay Harbor, and it's to my advantage to extend the season as far as can be extended. Winter isn't good for me because of the location of my cottage, but I certainly would, May and through November would be great. And I have experienced, I use an advertising gimmick that is worldwide. And we've had halftime at the Super Bowl, you know, is one of the spots that they use. So I now am enjoying people. I've had people this summer, by the way, I'm booked solid, you know, it's a good summer. But I've had people from Belfast, Northern Ireland. I have some coming in from Paris next week. So there are people coming because of that little bit of advertising through the agency that I use. I'm getting people from all over the world, which is really kind of neat.
Thank you, Mark.
And so I can see that there's an advantage here. But I have to say that I agree with Mr. Splain. That brought it right up, didn't it?
You got that, Katrina?
Because I experienced, and some of us who are here in the room experienced the heartbreak of not being able to get a donation to help save our hospital from the town because things are tight. And so, and that means something to my cottage as well, to have that facility. So, you know, it's a kind of bittersweet. I would see that this would be good for my business, good for the town, and I know that you all have a terrifically difficult job explaining to people what you do with every single penny.
Thank you, Mark. Ms. Beck?
Alan Barter, Reed Road. In any event, no matter what you entertain, as far as the tissue bills, dollar signs, there seems to be a sentiment that, well, I read the columnist there in the Portland Press Herald every Sunday. He talks about economics in Maine. And the last year or so, there's been a few columns about how Lincoln County is now the most affluent area along the coast, so on and so forth. Well, just remember, please, that there are taxpayers out here in Boothbay Harbor who, through no fault of their own, a victim of varying degrees of circumstance. Their taxes come very hard. We're usually not very noisy, which is a problem. I happen to be one of them. Last year, $300 and some odd of my taxes were late, but I got them paid. But we struggle with our taxes. And if you want to donate some money to this, fine. But just remember that we're here. We're not very noisy, but we exist. And I guess that's all I'll say. I don't think there's anyone on that board that doesn't know what I'm talking about.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
Hi, Martha Cowdery, 59 Rhodes End. I was really excited when I read that article in the newspaper about it, because I think it'd be a wonderful asset to the community, because PBS is it's known for quality. I don't have any rentals here. I don't have a business that will profit from tourism, but I recognize that my taxes go towards trying to make the area stronger. And by the area being stronger, that means our grocery store will stay here year round. And the more we can expand into shoulder seasons, the stronger everything else that I enjoy here and what everybody else enjoys here in town will remain. So I'm all for it. I think it's great. I think it's an investment in our area.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Mike?
Sure. Michael Tomko, 59 Rhodes End. Bill, if I remember from our comprehensive plan research, our town is around, what, 2,600 people? Residents.
A little bit higher than that, I think, but yeah.
Maybe remove the kids, and we're looking at maybe around 2,000 adults. So a $2,000 donation roughly comes, with all due respect to Mr. Barter and his comments, which I take seriously, it comes down to $1 an adult. That's certainly something I would be more than willing to make as an investment in this town, that and more.
Thanks, Mike.
Sure.
Anyone else from the public?
Just one more comment, as far as the Board of Selectmen is concerned, is this a governmental responsibility at all? You have tremendous power to confiscate money from people and give it to agencies, not necessarily this one at all, but several, which have nothing to do with the government of the town, which is your real responsibility. I don't object to it. I praise what they're doing, but it's a commercial enterprise, no matter how you look at it. And I don't think that is a function of a Board of Selectmen, again, to confiscate money from taxpayers, to give it to outside agencies. And it spreads. I mean, we have more camels' noses under the tent plant now.
Thanks, Palmer. Anyone else?
Oh, could I just add a comment to this?
Absolutely.
Currently, our budgetary process has 13 people that sit and review 19 or 20 requests for money every fall. And those are very difficult conversations, because like this, most people support them, but it's a matter of what do you pay and what do you not. Right? The budget that we just approved at town meeting, we're raising $211,000 in taxes for these support organizations. Now, granted, a large part of that is ambulance this year, but still, it's a big number. If this project doesn't have to happen this September and October, and could be in the spring, then it could go through the normal budgetary process, just as everything else does. That would sort of, I think, alleviate one of the hurdles that we're looking at.
That's a good point. That's Jim. Jim is the final public, and then I'm going to close the public discussion, and we'll return to the Board of Selectmen. Jim?
We, obviously, the town of Boothbay goes through its own budget process and understands all the restraints and troubles that you've gone through for the last couple of years, as well as anybody. Much like you, we go through goals and objectives, like Mr. Hoffman was referring to. And one of the goals and objectives that was brought up in my first year here is that we need to do more about economic development. And what does that mean is always a challenging question. And we sat down and started doing a self-analysis of how much money do we spend on economic development. And I would challenge you to do the same. Because at that point in time, we didn't use any money for economic development. in the town of Boothbay. Well, the Board of Selectmen were challenged with, well, do we come up with more money to do economic development? And I said, well, why don't we take some of our contingency money that we always appropriate and earmark a certain amount of that for some of these grassroots economic development issues that come up where you need a little bit of money to kickstart something quickly, and use that and see how well that works. And if those things work better, then maybe we use those examples to go to the people and say, what if this pot was a little bit bigger? What more could we do with it? And I can tell you that, look throughout the rest of the state, and especially in portions of the state that are struggling with maintaining their own microeconomy, as they invest a lot of money in economic development. And the fact that Boothbay does not invest a lot of money in economic development says a little bit about us, that we haven't had to maintain our own microeconomy. Well, the tables are starting to turn, and that we do need to invest. And I would say that, okay, maybe this does apply to your commercial business, but think about the value in your home, because everybody that's probably here tonight owns a home in the Boothbay region. The value in your home is all invested in the fact that you live in a tourist community, a resort community. Otherwise, the value of that house would not be as high as it is. So maintaining this as a microeconomy, a tourist economy, is good for the value of your home. And that's why the town of Boothbay has decided to support this. Because we see it as, we can't create our own economic development programs with the amount of money that we have. But we can throw a little bit of money behind one that sounds like it's got some teeth every once in a while. Last year, we did a local initiative to try to make sure that Boothbay businesses were in the walk-in map of the Chamber of Commerce, which got more Boothbay businesses than we ever had on the walk-in map.
Let's stick to this issue. I understand your larger point.
I'm finished, thank you.
All right, thanks. So let me close the public discussion, and now the select board can discuss and debate this issue.
I'd just like to say one thing. That is that there seems to be some underlying discussion that Boothbay Harbor is not interested in tourism or bringing people to the town. That is far from the truth. Right now, we have raised the mill rate by 4.85%, roughly. And we have also dedicated this year a sum of about $450,000 to the fish pier so that we can maintain a lobster fleet that can go in and out of the harbor so that when tourists come here, they can see that this is an active harbor. Yes, the people of Boothbay Harbor are certainly well invested in the tourism business. This year so far, $450,000 towards the fish pier. Plus we have a police department in this town. Why? Because we have a lot of restaurants and a lot of bars. And the people of Boothbay Harbor shell out $780,000 a year for their police department. So I kind of just want to remind you all that this is a tourist town, and we're well aware that it is, and that it costs money to keep it that way. And we have committed the public to that. So this year, as Tom said, we will have a budget and a Board of Selectmen's 13 weeks of budget agony, where we meet every Wednesday in joint session. And we need to put warrants before the people at the legislature. The legislature is the town meeting in May. And I think you have to be careful just how much money you spend. And I think that Mr. Barter is right. There's a lot of people who feel pretty responsible for paying their taxes and do pay them, and it gets more and more difficult. Thank you.
Thank you.
What else? Just a question to what I think we were talking about before we actually convened the meeting. If we decided to support this.
Talking about business before the meeting.
No, of course, but if we decided to support this, do we have the money? From where would the money come?
That's a problem.
It's an issue. We have a fundamental difference from Boothbay actually in this matter, in that I believe the Boothbay town warrant every year sets aside a sum of money for the selectmen to use basically at their discretion for these things that pop up. We discussed doing that last year, but we did not do that, and the town meeting did not fund any such group, any such pot of money. So, you know, as a practical matter, could we vote it and do it? I think the obvious answer is yes, we could. Would it be strictly proper? I think the obvious answer is probably not. I would defer to Tom on budgets and finances and
I think you're right.
accounts.
I mean, we don't have a contingency fund or any other name for something like that. I mean, everything that we have in our budget, and Palmer can tell you, we go through ad nauseum, line by line. And that's what makes up the total warrant at the town meeting. We don't have extra money set aside for requests that come in separately. The only thing that we have that's there, that's not, you know, delegated, is the undesignated fund, and that's strictly for emergencies. This would not fall into that.
Yeah, there is, Tom correctly points out, there's phrasings for emergencies and immediate consequences, but.
You want to hear from me?
I do.
Oh, you do? Oh. I still think we have to go by the procedures of what we've set up as to the budgeted situation, and we have to watch what we do with our pennies, because Mr. Batt is correct, there's a lot of people having a hard time paying their taxes, and I have to kind of agree with you on that. And I know, thank you very much for your presentation, it's great, but this, after all, this community here, we do a lot. We do a tremendous amount here, and sometimes we don't get the credit for it either. And I've lived here a long time. And you're right, Mr. Splain, with the fish pier and what we've done for the fishermen is incredible on that waterfront. And we continue to work with the fishermen too. So my contingency is that I think they need to put a proposal together for the budget committee for next year. That's my personal feeling.
Thanks, Judy.
So, just to add on, so I think the answer to my question is that we would take the money from something else. Is that right?
We would take it from the general fund.
Well, no, you'd have
Yeah, but
to
yes.
itemize it against something, and something would fall off our list of things to do.
And the issue with that is, if you have something really critical, like the roof caved in over the office or something, you go and do those things.
We have a
But-
fund for that.
That's what
Oh, well, and we have the
undesignated sounds
undesignated
like.
fund for that, but if we come and if, sorry, Catherine, I'm gonna pick on you just to use as an example. The chamber comes to us and says, oh, we need double the money for the Christmas harbor lights, and we need, you know, double the money right away for next year's windjammers, and now we need not 2,000 or however much money Getting Away is asking for. It really quite undermines and defeats the whole purpose of the budget process, in my opinion. So I'm all for organizations coming through the budget. I know I think it's a fabulous idea. I'd love to see it done, and I'm a real avid TV watcher of travel TV stations and things like that. So I'd love to see this done. The question is it the right timing for the town, in my opinion? So I'd rather see you come to the budget process, even though it means that you'd have to potentially delay the project.
Can I ask a question? Or is that, so, this is a little more sense of it. How does Damascotta, who seems to do an amazing job bringing, people in, Pumpkin Festival, Oyster Festival, Pirate Festival, who does that advertising or marketing or whatever you want to call it? Is it the town?
It's a little bit off topic, but
Okay, well, I'm just, it's a
let me
model
try and
that
give
it seems
let me
very
try and give
successful,
a very
is all
brief
I'm saying.
answer. I believe Damascotta has an economic development position that they've funded. And I believe it is the sense of this board that we should have such a position, and it's my personal sense that we should have a position jointly with Boothbay, so that we have somebody whose job is responsible for doing all these things. And we don't now, and we should, I believe.
I'm not sure that that position takes care of all those things in Damascotta
Understood.
though,
I'm asking,
because,
that's what my question was.
no, it's different groups,
Mhm.
so.
All right. Anybody else?
Are we ready for a motion?
I-
Do we need a motion?
I'd like to speak.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm really torn on this one. I also think it's a terrific idea. I went on the website and looked at the video and looked at that, and I made a donation. But I have great difficulty in, as I have said in the past, of stepping around the town meeting process for allocating tax monies. And that's what this would be in our structure. And I very much resonate with the idea that Tom said, is that we should get this on our warrant and we should fund it, and I would publicly support funding it in next year's warrant. But I think to fund it at this point in time would be invalidating that whole process. And I would be happy to support a resolution from this board that says we think this is a great idea and we have intentions of funding it next year, but we can't do it at this point in time. I don't know if the board would go along with that or not. But I would like to show support of the town for this, but I think I have a great deal of difficulty in arbitrarily funding something that hasn't gone through the process and hasn't been voted on at town meeting floor. Because they're the people and they're the ones that should speak.
I agree.
Does anybody want to make a motion?
To what?
Well, we could make a motion to fund it, and then it will either pass or fail. We could make a motion to not fund it, but to support it and to put it on the warrant for next year, and that will either pass or fail.
I would make a motion. I would try a motion that says that in recognition of the support that I heard tonight, that we fund this effort to some, call it a token amount. I mean, I've heard the number of $2,000, but I'm not sure where we got that from. I guess I'm in favor of funding it to show support. And I'd suggest $1,000.
So I've heard a motion to fund Getting Away Together, the local committee of Getting Away Together, to the amount of $1,000. Do I hear a second? Once, twice. There is no second, so the motion dies. Would anybody else like to make any other motions?
I move that we do not fund this issue with PBS or Getting Away Together as a municipal body. I believe that it is not within our jurisdiction. I believe that it is entirely up to the individual. Each of us have a perfect right, if we can afford it, to make a donation. I will make a donation, but I am not willing to suggest or to ask the municipality to make such a donation. So therefore, I move that we do not fund this requirement, this $2,000 requirement or suggestion.
So I hear a motion that we do not fund the Getting Away Together committee. Is there a second? Not hearing a second, the motion dies.
Two down.
Would you allow the chairman to make a motion?
Sure. It's illegal.
Well, that's why I'm asking. It's not illegal if the board permits it.
You can ask. You can ask. I'll make a motion that, do we want to allow the chairman to make a motion?
Sure.
Robert's rules,
Second.
Okay.
that's what you wanted under.
Yeah, it's got to be under Robert's rules, so you can make a motion now.
It's been moved and seconded. No, we haven't voted on it.
Oh, well, we'll
The chairman
vote on
be
it
allowed
then.
to make a motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
All in favor?
You can make a motion.
I move that the town of Boothbay Harbor supports the Getting Away Together initiative And we'll make every effort to place funding for that on the upcoming town warrant that will be voted on by the town in May 2014.
Could I just say something as a?
Not at the moment. Let's finish
Well,
this
this is
up.
for the budget committee that I've been on for 18 years. You have an orderly process for doing that, and you're about to subvert it.
No,
Right? Yes,
no, I'm
you-
not. What I said is, the selectmen will make an effort to place it on the warrant through the budget committee, as we do every
Through
year.
the normal process.
Through the normal process.
Normal process.
That's the motion.
Which means they have to fill out an application.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Questionnaire.
That is my motion, through the normal process.
Want to make sure, because you're going to have an avalanche of other people coming in the same way in mid-year.
I understand.
You know
Thank
it.
you.
I believe there is a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 4-1. That ends that agenda item. We are now at the second public forum. I know it. Frank?
I understand your side of it as a board. I also care very much for this town and what happens here, and I wish that we were a little bit more flexible. I'm going to donate $2,000 to the town of Boothbay Harbor to give Getting Way Together. If you'll take it.
I think the proper way to do that is give it directly to
I'd like the town to give it.
Getting Away Together.
I'd like the town to give it.
I tell you what, help me out here on procedure, Tom.
If he gives
If-
a donation for a
accept it.
specific thing. we
If
can do
you
that.
give us a letter saying this is a donation for the funding of, then we will do that.
That's fine.
And
I wrote it around the check.
Ask your tax lawyer first.
I don't care about my tax lawyer.
Oh, sure you do.
This town does better, I do better.
That's fine.
Let him talk.
thank you very much.
Let him talk.
It will be done.
We got a lot of work to, sorry, I can't talk to you. We got a lot of work to do. Thank you.
We're still in public forum. Anyone else? Going once, going twice? We now have executive sessions. Oh, I should ask one thing. Is Robert Field here? No. Moving on. We're now going into executive session under MRSA Section 405-6C to discuss real property and Section 405-6A to discuss personnel matters. And so I'd ask if the room be cleared.
I move that we accept the bid for the High Ledge subdivision, which was appropriately advertised to the public by the town of Boothbay Harbor in the Boothbay Register. And I move that we accept the name of the the bid of the highest bidder, and that goes to Jeff Smith. And the bid amount was for $15,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the $15,000 bid for the High Ledge subdivision, which was submitted for public auction. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Somebody's buzzing.
Yeah.
Somebody's phone vibrating. Is it you?
The next agenda item is approval of the warrants.
I move that we approve the warrants upon their diligent review.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the warrants upon their diligent review. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
That's the end of warrants. The last agenda item is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
There can be no discussion. All in favor? We are adjourned.